You ran from the rules, you dodged every chain, but nothing got built in that wide open plain. You swore that no system would ever confine, but chaos crept in where you drew no line. You thought staying free meant tearing it down, but Saturn is here with a steadier crown. You hated the grind, you craved wild flow, but slow built success is how gardens grow. You tried to outrun what structure demands, but magic takes root in well tended lands. So if you're done spinning, if you're ready to see, let's talk about rules and how they set you free. This episode is for every heart centered, soul led, purpose based entrepreneur who has been avoiding or fighting or rebelling against the system, only to realize when they're willing to look that ultimately their resistance keeps them small, keeps them crouched under a concrete ceiling, keeps them from feeling truly straight spined, empowered, and like they're able to make the difference and the impact that they want to in this world. We're going to explore how Saturn's so called rules and limitations are not actually here to cage you. In fact, they're here to support you, to empower you, and ultimately to set you free to be and do who you are meant to and what you are meant to show up with in this world. I'm going to also share my own story of how I learned this the hard way, because Saturn's way is always the hard way, but it's so worth it. And also how claiming structure for you on your own terms, though, is the key to scaling your sacred work and doing it in a way that actually feels awesome, feels like you, feels like it fits. And again, it's this paradox where it feels like freedom, liberation, and expansion all at the same time. So listen on to hear about why resisting structure keeps you stuck instead of safe. The moment that Saturn told me to trade the van life for a tax office, we're going to have some story time. The rebel's U-turn and what happens when you finally stop fighting the rules and start building with them. The slow, unsexy magic that actually scales your sacred work, and what it means to play by Saturn's rules on your own terms. Let's dive in. First, let's look at why resisting structure actually keeps you stuck instead of safe. It's so true. I understand the avoidance. I supported so many clients that chose a path that felt like freedom. They didn't want the confinement. They didn't want the structure because they wanted to be in the flow. They wanted to be aligned with their magic and the ways that their intuition guides them. They didn't want to feel stuck in or locked into something that felt rigid. They wanted to feel expansive and again, feel free. And they equated structure with the antithesis of the freedom and the flow that they were seeking, only eventually to find that they were actually choosing a path that was breeding chaos and burnout and stagnation under that concrete ceiling, because of that belief that structure was going to keep them from their freedom. So avoiding that structure was going to maintain their freedom. But the hidden cost, the unfortunate side effect of constant rebelling against the systems that exist, the structures as we know them, what is here and designed and available to welcome our businesses into, essentially what we need to plug into. The rebellion, the stuff that comes with that rebellion, the emotional toll that it takes, the energetic toll that it takes, and ultimately the financial toll that it takes to not be able to make the money that you want or that you need to be able to actually focus on your work to help the people that you want to help. When you're constantly crouched under and hiding from the system and unwilling to plug yourself into it to be able to be visible in your work and to show up transparently strong, there's a common side effect, one of them, of being one of these people is that you are not current with your taxes, you are charging by donation, you are being in the flow because you don't have these structures available for you to lean into, to be supported by, you end up not actually making what you need. Some part of you is like in hiding. If you make a certain amount, if you get over a certain earning level, you're going to be found out. They're going to find, you're going to be seen, basically. You're going to be visible in ways that you don't want to because you are afraid that you are doing something wrong or that you're going to get in trouble. Obviously, this is the most extreme example, but if you're listening to this, you might relate to this on some level. And I can tell you, it's way more common than you think for people to have these two together. The part of you that doesn't believe in or fully support the system and what it supports and what your tax dollars go to. So you don't want to participate in it, but you end up shooting yourself in the foot around your ability to show up and serve. You don't have the funds and the resources that you need to be able to fully devote yourself to your craft and your service. So the other people that suffer is the people that you're here to serve, the people that actually need you, the full you, to be able to be lit up, for them to find and for you to be able to support them with the work that only you can. The reason that I'm talking about this week is because Saturn just went retrograde. This is something that happens about half the year. Saturn's retrograde, half the year it's direct. This is a rhythm that happens, kind of a pendulum swing between being invited to focus more on what's out there, the structures and the authority systems out there. And then the pendulum swing to retrograde that we just moved into is into your inner game, your inner beliefs, your relationship to your inner authority, and your relationship to structure, the inside game that is. We have entered this cosmic checkpoint to reassess those things and ask yourself if the rebellion that is your current stance, in whatever way it is still actually serving you. This brings me to the story time I have in store for you here today, which is the moment that Saturn told me to trade the van life for a tax office. This is such an interesting story, in part because I'm Aquarian, and similar to Uranus being the only planet that spins sideways, the Aquarian urge to dance to the beat of a different drum than everybody else. Most stories of people's awakening are around being very rooted in the 3D, in this world, in the system, having the wool pulled over their eyes and having some kind of opening around seeing what's really going on, having more of a cosmic connection, a 5D perspective. They go from 3D like up and out. The reason that my story is so interesting is I very much went in reverse in terms of my biggest awakening to date. So much of it was through the channel of my relationship with Saturn and my orientation toward my future, my sense of responsibility, and ultimately my willingness to really root into the 3D. Something interesting if you are in proximity to your Saturn return, which starts right about 27, peaks about 30, and you come out the other side at about age 33. Is that this is the time when we transition from our youth, where we are just in exploration mode. We're trying things on for size. We're seeing what feels like ours and what doesn't. And we're taking notes along the way so that ultimately during that Saturn return, we're going to make decisions and choices around what we are going to keep inside of that circle, that ring that's closing around us, or so it feels like, and what we are going to let go of, because we're going to make like a 90-degree turn from breadth, where in our youth years, anything's possible. It just seems like the sky is the limit, and we have so many ideas of things that we might be interested in pursuing. But then we get to our Saturn return, and it's like, yo, I only have so much time in this life. I need to refine what I'm going to focus on to go deeply into that 90-degree turn into depth. A big part of it, and this is a topic for another time, all of the things that happen during your Saturn return, but It's a time of sacrifice. It's a time when you're probably going to be asked and nudged, not so gently if you don't do it willingly, to let go of the thing that you're most attached to break free, to start over from this new foundation of what really fits with the purpose that you are committing to, the work that you are committing to moving forward, and what needs to be sacrificed or let go. I say this because this is exactly what I went through during my Saturn return, like most do. And also, it was the most profound. Like, I had been studying astrology for many moons before this and had lots of little ahas and moments of clarity and realization. But it wasn't until Saturn came during the return that it was, I just can't even, the words do not even exist for how powerful and penetrating this experience was, how intense this rite of passage and transition was. Something just so incredibly undeniable, which also, if you've been in my world, you know, this is something that is just such a unfortunate thing for most young people that don't know this. They're not prepared for this. This is not a collective cultural conversation that we have. People think they become an adult at 18 and then they're blindsided at 30 when the transformation actually takes place from youth into your adult era, also known as your second Saturn cycle. But before I get off too much into that, I just want to set the stage in case you are not familiar with the Saturn return and how powerful it is, because this story finds me at that point, at the beginning of Saturn re-entering my life to get my attention and get me to let go of some things that I was very attached to. The biggest one was the relationship that I was in that was not actually supportive to the direction that I would be heading. It was a very codependent relationship where him and I both learned so much about codependency through that relationship and supported us to enter into much more supportive ones to our individual paths moving forward. That was one piece of it. Another big piece was just the life that I was living. And again, it was a little bit in reverse to most people. At that time, I was living in a van. I called her Estrella. She was my spaceship that was my way of being in the flow and in the world in a way while also being a total homebody. But I was doing a circuit through over and over where I would go to trim jobs and then I would go to hot springs to recuperate and then to transformational music festivals. So van dwelling, festival hopping, hot springs soaking, but honestly, so ungrounded. Just 100% in the flow in every sense of that. I was psychonaut that used psychedelics to be in the flow in the dance space. That was such a big part of my reality, both quantity and quality wise. It was my favorite space to be and somewhere I spent so much time between that and regular ecstatic dance, just being in the flow in my body. When it came to money, I was so just in the flow. I didn't keep track of anything then. I just made what I made at a trim job, got a fat stack of cash, and then went and wandered and did my thing till it was close to running out. And that would be my signal and cue to find the next gig. So 100% in the flow, zero structure. Then I really started to get to a point where I don't know. I mean, I was just having peak experience after peak experience, and yet I started to feel bored. I was starting to really crave being more grounded. That's what happens when Saturn enters the scene. At first, the nudges were subtle. I just started to notice I was feeling less excited about and interested in the life that had been my top choice, all in space for so many years. Then the nudges started to get louder. before ultimately having a full on awakening experience that I've called my mystery school, my magic school. It started with a voice in my head that asked for my consent around the question of, if we show you what's really going on, what you've been seeking and expanding into and unwilling to ground because of, if we show you what's really going on, the magic and what you're capable of, will you then ground yourself, get a real home, and start your tax practice so that you can anchor yourself, essentially ground yourself to be able to receive everything we're about to show you. Everything that you have had an inkling is actually going on, but you can't just fly and soar and float and flow through it. You need to ground yourself. You need to root yourself so that you can actually responsibly ground into it, and you can create the stability that you need through that root system to be able to really be in relationship to it in a responsible way. So let me tell you, I was a fuck yes to this question. I went on the ride of a lifetime for 2 weeks. And then on the other side of it, I did what I had agreed to. Saturn guided me every step of the way. I got the home, I started my tax practice, and would embark on almost a decade journey of going deeper and deeper into that boring life. Something you may not know about me is my North Node is in Taurus. My spiritual path, my destined direction is to embrace the quote boring side of things. So this was a big part of it for me specifically, but honestly is for everyone in general around your Saturn return. He's asking you to essentially go lower dimensional. One of the things my teacher, Stephen Forrest, always said about your Saturn return is it's going to put you in a direction to commit to a path of life's work that the 5-year-old in you that had these big lofty visions for what you do would just start crying to find out. Something that just seems so grown up and boring compared to the big dreams that you have, but is also something that's actually achievable and something through which, a vehicle through which you're actually able to help people and make a difference. Let me tell you the difference that I made, both for myself around the skills that I developed and the side of myself that I developed that I now trust wholeheartedly. Also, the people that I helped to make this transition themselves, which I still do, to help people to go from that very ungrounded, in the flow space that keeps them limited, actually, and to transition to embrace the freedom and the expansion that is available to them when they actually create stability and roots and choose the path of responsibility overlaid on their dream to choose their path forward. So if you take away nothing else from this story that I know meandered a bit with my Aquarian mercurial mind, take away that the most magical move for me that got me to the life and the fantasy life that I always wanted, that I'm living now, that is so much more peaceful and grounded and abundant and expansive, was to extract myself from what had been my exclusively cosmic, magical life and to ground myself and create the foundation for everything that I'm able to build and have now. The difference that I'm actually able to make now. All the people that I've helped and all the people that I have yet to help now that I am post-pivot after that era and season of my life of being a tax preparer and integrating those worlds through my service of having that cosmic alignment piece and that grounded compliance piece and existing at the center in the vehicle of your business. Okay, so now let's back up and generalize my specific share and story to what this invitation is, both during your Saturn return, but also anytime like now we have this shift from direct to retrograde, or you're having a prominent Saturn transit where he's back in your face, getting your attention and reminding you of the power and the magic in your responsibilities. That is what I call the Rebels U turn, which was such a common rite of passage and transition for all of my tax clients, many of them that came to me in a similar place that I was in, ready to really get serious about their life and their business, often going through their Saturn return. That's what happens when, like I said, you stop fighting the rules and you start building with them. I like to say pay to play, or remind everyone that there was a time when witches were burned, right? We weren't able to be our true, authentic selves and show up with our magic. Now we can. We just have to know the rules of the game that we're playing in so that we can align with them enough to be in compliance, but then break them like an artist and get to really do whatever we want. There's so much freedom available to us now to be ourselves and do our weird work in the world, whatever that is for you. Like I said, I just have so many examples of clients, creatives, healers, and visionaries who came to me having been resisting their taxes, the system or systems in their business, and being in compliance with their business, and the breakthroughs that happened over and over when they finally learned the rules of the game, embraced them, and were able to lean into the systems that they created around them as supportive and not restrictive. And actually finding that the restriction was in that concrete ceiling that they were crouched under, was in their avoidance, and their trying to exist in a world by avoiding the structures within it that make it up. That was restrictive, and it was actually so freeing. I have the example of clients telling me stories about before they worked with me, going to the bank and feeling small, feeling like they don't want to say the wrong thing. It just being this awkward and uncomfortable experience, to how different it felt to go into the bank fully empowered, fully understanding the rules and the language of the finance game and world, and just the night and day, and how that confidence rippled into so many other areas of their life and business, so that they felt greater freedom. They were able to create sustainability within their business and be on track and rooted and grounded to be able to scale from there and really start playing the game. Then, of course, the inner shift as well of realizing and getting to experience the truth of that mastery of structure, having it there to be able to lean into, actually opened up the path for them to master their magic as well. If this is familiar to you, if you can relate to this, if you're someone who has been stuck in that place where fighting the system feels like the only way to stay free, or it seems like it, but something feels off and wrong and it's not working, and you're starting to wonder if that fight is what's keeping you small, limited, exhausted, and overwhelmed, I want to open the possibility for you of what if real freedom actually comes from what you've been avoiding, from building the structures that can actually hold your magic and create a container for you to master it as you grow and as it grows with you. That is exactly why I created the new version of Cosmic Currency so that it can meet you where you are around your obsession with magic and alignment through the cosmic code sides of the equation, as you start to claim your inner authority and design the systems and structure that is both sacred and aligned with your unique design, but also solid and able to support you to scale your sacred work, both in terms of the difference that you're able to make, the people that you're able to touch and support, but also the financial flow, how you're able to fund yourself to be able to show up more and more for that work without the scramble, without the avoidance, without the stress that comes from trying to build something without embracing structure. It's just antithetical to each other. I want you to know that we are in the final raise of First Light Access. This is the opportunity that I have opened. If you know this is for you and you want to jump in before we're actually ready to start, which is a few weeks out, you can claim your seat now. Go to cosmicbee.link/currency and then chill. I have heard from some people that have enrolled that actually one of the biggest fuck yeses for them around this moment and the First Light Access door that is open is that they didn't have to start right away, is that they were able to make this decision and make this choice and claim their seat now, and then just sit back and not actually have to dive in. So no pressure at all. Just buy your ticket essentially and know that it's coming and that you are going to be guided and supported to create the systems that you need to hold your expansion. And you're setting yourself up for that. You're committing to that. You're choosing that. So again, no pressure at all. The least pressure there could possibly be right now. It's just the choice that comes with the discount that will never be back again, the $300 off, like a founding member rate. Also, if you get on the First Light Access, well, there's a whole stack of bonuses and perks you can check out when you go to cosmicbee.link/currency. But another one is I'm going to make you a little mini money reading of the codes that we're going to dive much more deeply into so that you can start with just dipping your toes into the juicy astrology side of it with your cosmic codes. I'm going to say it a third time for repetition. If you're busy right now and don't have time, but you know that this is a yes, just go put it in your phone, put it in your browser so it's there for you to return to when you're not driving or doing whatever else you're doing right now. cosmicbee.link/currency. With that, let's get into the slow, unsexy magic. I know I'm kind of saying it in a sexy way because it kind of is. I don't know. I've got Saturn in Scorpio. A lot of people of my generation do, a lot of my peers. So you can probably feel me when I say that slow, unsexy magic that actually scales your sacred work, because Saturn is our big daddy, actually teaching us how to get where we want to go, to be who we want to be, to align with our potential. He teaches that through slow and steady and sustainable, that those are the ways to success. It is a long game, it is a grounded game, and ultimately winning the game is not any height. It's becoming sustainable. It's feeling rooted and grounded and on track. Through his teachings, what you really realize if you let him in, and you probably have experiences that illuminate this, is that fast growth fantasies are actually the trap, and trying to work toward them is what actually burns you out. So Saturn is like, yo, slow down, get comfy. We're going to be here a while. And anyone that tries to teach you that, oh, you can get to 10K months in 3 weeks or whatever it is, right? Like, no, dude, it's a trap. It's a trap, because maybe you'll get that result by mimicking somebody else, but you didn't ground in, you didn't do it your own way, and it wasn't actually in flow, right? It ended up, if it didn't burn you out that time, it's going to burn you out to try and repeat it again. And that actually the systems that will scale your sacred work and support you to deepen into who you actually are as you get bigger in your business and your impact do not look flashy. They look steady and a little bit boring. And that the willingness to cultivate and grow your integrity and root into that long game, the longevity of your business, will trump instant results every time, because they are compounding, they create momentum, and they are the foundation and the structure that you can actually relax into. So what does it mean to play by Saturn's rules on your own terms? Firstly, let me just dispel any myth your fear might have told you or held over you. Saturn's rules are not about blind obedience. This is why the idea of authority right now, tuning into your inner authority and cultivating that through Saturn's guidance during this Saturn retrograde, but also what that means for your relationship with external authority. Whichever one it is, whether it's your relationship to external authority in this world, your relationship to your higher power. Oh my goodness, this was such a big one for me on my path. This was such a big shift when I realized that in the dialogue between me and my higher self, that actually it's a co-creation. I know that's simple to say, but I had a moment once, it was actually during the Great American Eclipse on my porch of my little studio out in the woods that I was living in, my little cabin, and I was out on the porch with my glasses and my little dog Itchy, and I had the ultimate realization that changed everything for me around this piece, around my relationship to authority, however that manifests, that it is never about blind obedience, that it is never about me just surrendering and submitting to what I'm being shown or told. It is always about the co-creative, dynamic decision-making process. It is always about my response to and integration of the guidance, the input. But I am a free agent. And in fact, Saturn's teachings and rules are actually about mastery. When I realized that I had just as much say in the equation as anything else I was being fed or told or guided, whether it was something of this world that I felt distrustful of, or something that coming from my higher self that something in me thought I should just blindly surrender to. No, whatever it is, you are half of the equation. The other half is what you're being told or shown. When it comes to Saturn's teachings, whatever authority figure or idea or concept that comes through for you, your mastery, which is what is actually being supported, is in that relationship and in your development of being able to stand tall and play your role as half of that co-creative machine and dynamic, that couple, that power couple. When you choose structure, when you're willing to lean in and embrace it, like Saturn teaches, you're actually choosing your sovereignty. You are creating a relationship with authority that is based in that sovereignty, in that knowing that you are your willingness, your consent, your ideas, your motivations, whatever it is, your way is just as valid, important, powerful, and necessary as the way that any authority might lay out for you to follow. This brings us specifically in the money side of it, compliance, taxes, that whole thing, that compliance, being in compliant with those rules of the game, tracking your income and expenses, which is part of being in compliance besides your filing responsibility, and boundaries between your business and personal life, boundaries around your business entity, another piece of compliance and what you are expected to do as a business owner. These aren't just rules. These can become part of your sacred strategy in your business. The invitation stands for you to claim the rules as your own, show up alongside them, know them, be in relationship with them, and create structures around them that can hold you in your magic and your sacred work. Just remember, the rules of the game are not here to box you in. They are here to hold you steady, to support you, to help you to find mastery within yourself. And Saturn's influence, the slow magic that he brings and encourages you to embrace, is not here to stifle your sacred work or your magic either. It's here to give you the roots that you need so that you can rise as high as possible sustainably. If you're ready, if this is calling to you and you want to stop fighting the systems and start building your own to actually hold the abundance that you know is in store for you, First Light access to cosmic currency is waiting and available for you for as long as it is. We're right around the corner from the next phase of this launch, and everything's going to change. If you want to make that choice to make that transition with your money relationship, cosmicb.link/currency is where to go to claim your spot and decide that you are going to embrace the structure that is going to set you free.